Now let's bring in Brazilian economist and former vice president of the New Development Bank, Paulo Nogueira Batista. He joins us from southern Brazil. Paulo, what is your take on all the developments we've seen the last 24 hours? First, the House arrest order for Bolsonaro, then a very strong reaction from the United States with them imposing sanctions on Justice de Moraes.
Well, this shows that the Brazilian Supreme Court has not been intimidated by the threats and sanctions imposed by the U.S. government, by Donald Trump. I think this issue should be seen as a geopolitical power play, where Trump is trying to destabilize, weaken the Lula government, and to favor a politician in Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, who's likely to be a vassal of the United States, subordinate to the United States in case he comes back to power. There's a lot of affinity between Trump and Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is in fact a vulgar imitator of Trump. And Trump sees Bolsonaro, I believe, as someone he can control.
And
So
just like Donald Trump, Paulo, Bolsonaro also has a lot of supporters in Brazil.
That's true, he has supporters. His support may have weakened in recent times, but he's still an important political figure. And in fact, if you notice, his trajectory is similar to the trajectory of Donald Trump. What his supporters in Brazil are in effect trying to do is to reproduce the trajectory of Donald Trump, who attempted a coup, was not convicted, and ran again successfully to the presidency. People in Brazil that support Bolsonaro would like to see the repeat of that in Brazilian politics. From a geopolitical...
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your sentence, please.
From a geopolitical point of view, this should be closely seen as the fact that Lula is a more independent politician and that Brazil is part of the BRICS, together with Russia, India, China, South Africa, and other countries. And the role that Brazil is playing in BRICS, and in particular the fact that President Lula has openly spoken about an alternative currency to the US dollar, creates concern in the United States, creates concern with Donald Trump. And it helps to explain this picture where Donald Trump is claiming that there's a witch hunt against Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil.
In fact, he has directly tied his hefty, steep tariffs on Brazil to all these legal troubles Bolsonaro is going through. Paulo, could you perhaps explain the impact, if you will, of these tariffs on Brazil, when Brazil, as you mentioned, is part of BRICS and also has very strong ties, economic ties with China?
That's right. Look, the United States should be seen as a declining superpower, but still a superpower, and capable of doing a lot of harm to any country in the world. In the case of the threats against Brazil, the tariffs that will be imposed upon Brazil, these are very different from the other ones, from the tariffs imposed or threatened with respect to other countries, because in the case of Brazil, the most prominent argument used to apply very high tariffs, 50% on about 60% of Brazilian exports to the United States, the argument is political, at least in great part political, which is the supposed witch hunt against Bolsonaro. Now, this should be seen as the fact that the United States does not want an independent Latin America. And the country that in Latin America holds the best chances of being truly independent and influential in Latin America, because of its size, is Brazil. Brazil under an independent government, but Brazil under a subordinate government, which would be the case of the return of Bolsonaro, or one of his allies, is not playing that role, and that's what the United States wants.
So does this perhaps mark a shift, if you will, in U.S.-Brazil relations, given how closely aligned Bolsonaro and Trump once were and still appear to be? And do you have any sort of optimism, Paulo, that the two sides can still strike some kind of trade agreement with all this back and forth accusations?
I don't think so, because Trump is not a reliable negotiator. I mean, he says today he has one stance. As we speak, he may change his stance, you know. The next day it's something else. 25% against India, 30% against South Africa, 30% against China until August 16th. So it's a completely erratic policy, and I don't think you can trust anything that you agree with the United States under Trump. It's unfortunate because the U.S. is the third largest destination of Brazilian exports after China and the European Union. And the United States is still an important country, the second largest economy in the world, the second largest trading nation. So the fact that unless there's some further changes in the next few days, the fact that as of August 6th, about 60% or nearly 60% of Brazilian exports to the United States will be tariffed at the high rate of 50% is something that disrupts trade between Brazil and the United States in a very major way and harms important sectors of the Brazilian economy. For example, fishery, for example, meat, for example, coffee.
Yeah.
Let's see, however, if those that are interested in importing these goods from Brazil in the United States will have sufficient lobbying power to increase the number of exemptions that were granted on this 50% tariff.
All right. Paulo Nogueira Batista, thank you so much. We're going to have to leave it there.